Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about making that difficult poem accessible to all your students with this really simple trick. Let's go. So you've got this brilliant, juicy poem, plenty of meat on its bones, ties in with your theme brilliantly, and you think it'll be fantastic for your students when they come to write literary essays, when they come to discuss the ideas in it, the language features, all that. You've got the perfect poem. Now, what are you going to do when your students have a wide range of reading abilities and sort of that perseverance as well, right? How are you going to make this poem accessible so that it is equitable, to use that lovely PC term, for all of your students? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to rewrite it. Yes, that's right. It's not sacrilege to hack into a poetic masterpiece like, say, Dulce Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen, which is the example that I use throughout this blog. It's not sacrilege when you are simply translating it. You have that greater purpose of helping your students enjoy what he had to say. It's brilliant because you're making it equitable, as I said. So what led me down this garden path? Well, a few years back, I had and I think I've talked about this class before. It taught me a lot. I had a class that had a very wide range of reading abilities. So this was a year 10 class, so grade 9, and the two kids had a reading age of 6. And then we went up to one boy was actually, I think, gifted. And then we didn't have just sort of a middle. Everyone was spread quite evenly across that range. So you can imagine the nightmare it was to teach. And I became the master of differentiation. So with this tool, where I have 3 levels, that allowed me to think about how could I rewrite my poem so that the avatars that I had in that class could understand it. Now, what do I mean by avatars? I mean, so I thought about my lowest student and thought, okay, so how can I rewrite the verse of this poem so that he would understand it? And then I had my middle student in mind, and then I had my top student in mind. How is this going to be engaging for him? So for him, he was going to have the original poem. So that way, with my avatars in mind, I was able to create 3 levels of poem. Obviously, you only have to write 2. One for the really low struggling kids and one for the middle. So that's how I got into this for that class. Just a wee note to add to this whole idea of my avatars to create 3 levels of work. I never had groups. So I would simply create worksheets that had 3 levels of work and students would come in and they would choose the worksheet they wanted to do. So, I wasn't telling them what one to do. And yes, some of the kids would choose the easy version, but generally it evened out, and they would choose the one that was right for them. So they weren't put into groups. They quite confidently chose the work that was right for them. But always, as I say, when I was organizing those 3 levels of work, I had my avatar in mind. So would Cody cope with this? Would he get it finished? And that's important. Would this be challenging enough to excite, Casey or whoever? So that's a little aside there about those levels of work and using those avatars and how I manage the logistics. So how did I name my 3 levels? So as you'll see here, I had most often used Walk Fit, Yoga Fit, and CrossFit because most of the kids love sports, right? What else have I had? I copied Carol Ann Tomlinson, look her up. She's the master of differentiation. Idea of straight ahead, uphill, mountainous. There's also straight ahead, windy road, rugged road. I've had people use like a seed and then a sapling and then a big tree kind of thing. Here in New Zealand, I made one that was Pippy Fit, so a little shellfish, Pippy Fit, Tui Fit, which is one of our native birds, and Taniwha Fit, which is like a monster. So those kind of levels, you can decide what you want, but have something that your students are going to relate to. So let's get back into poetry now. Okay, so how did I rewrite Dulce Decorum Est? Let's have a look at the walk fit version, and I'll stick it up on screen and I'll read it out. Which way am I going to go? Okay, so there it is up there on the screen. As you can see, I've changed the title as well. So it's a sweet thing to die for your country in war. Full stop. Not. Okay, so the soldiers' bodies were bent over like old men. Their knees couldn't hold them up, so weak and tired. They coughed like old ladies who smoked cigarettes all their lives. They swore as they marched through mud. Now, as you can see, and I'll go over this later, I have resorted to pretty much to sentences, and I have changed that vocabulary so that it is very simple. Okay, so let's have a look at the yoga fit, up the next level now, and what I did with that. So it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. So a little bit better title, more true to the original, more true. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, here we go. Bent over like old beggars under heavy sacks of equipment. So you see I brought in the vocabulary, some of the vocabulary from the original poem. Struggling knees, coughing like sick old ladies, we swore through mud until we turned our backs on the terrifying bombs and gunfire and began to trudge through mud. So you can see where I'm going with that. I've got those run-on lines coming through. And some of the vocab, as I said, is taken from the original. One of the key things to remember, again, I'll mention that later, is that you want the line breaks to come in your rewritten version in the same place as the original line, as they do in the original poem. So there you go, that's the next level up. And then my top students would choose the original version of the poem. So that's my CrossFit kids. So yeah, it's quite easy. The other thing I do is I will approach a poem one verse at a time. If it's long like this, so it's clearly 3 verses, so I can easily do 3 lessons per verse. The other thing that I tend to do is the kids pretty much have the same questions, whatever the level, because all I'm doing in terms of my differentiation is making that poem equitable, accessible for all. The questions, they can still do the same thinking, and a lot of it relates to, well, what would you see, hear, smell, even taste in this situation, that kind of question. So or rewrite the verse, what's happening there, something like that, draw it, whatever, doesn't matter what level they're at, they can access the poem and they can actually do these activities and think about what Owen is saying. Let's go over the tips. Remember, you only have to write 2 other versions. Your 3rd version is the original. For longer poems where you're including activities as well, I would deliver just 1 verse per lesson. That kind of gives me some breathing space as well if I get a bit behind, but it's enough for the students because they can do the work and they can finish the work, which is really important, and you have time to go over those answers, their ideas, and discuss it, because they all have now the same understanding of what's going on in that verse, so you can actually have that whole class discussion. When rewriting, as I said before, use the same line breaks as the original. So the lower level one is more sentence style, and then in the middle level one, you can start using those run-on lines a bit more, run your sentences onto the next line kind of thing. Focus on dealing with obscure or difficult vocabulary. Obviously, you're replacing it for the lower level version. with those simple everyday words that they might use. And yes, I understand the whole reading strategy of approaching vocabulary first and going through that, and that's fine. But I just wanted, in this example and in others that I've done since, it works really well because we just read it and the students can access it straight away. We don't have to do that vocabulary first thing. Later, I could look at the vocabulary that's used in the original version, but I just wanted them to enjoy the message a bit more. So that's why I did that. As I said before, also give students the same questions if you like, because now you've made this poem equitable. You can, you don't have to, or you can give your top tier a few extra questions that require a bit more critical thinking. I always end the study of the poem by giving all students the original version, and it's really, really cool when you read over it and those students who would have completely struggled and checked out of that original poem get it. So they're going away thinking, we just read that complex poem and I got it, which, I mean, what's the long-term trade-off of that? It's gold, right? So I'm pretty sure that poets like Owen are not going to worry that you've hacked their poem, their masterpiece, to pieces because he had good intentions. If you're worried about time, like, oh, I haven't got time to do this, don't panic because, as I said, you only have to rewrite 2, but it takes a lot less time than you think it does. It's really just a 5-10 minute job. And imagine if you did a few key poems in your department, everyone does one each, and suddenly you've got, half a dozen poems all differentiated, which would be quite a cool thing to do, I think, have that little catalogue, that department catalogue. Remember, you'll probably use this resource for years as well. It's not going to be a one-off. You're going to reuse it, so don't stress about that. And as I sort of alluded to before, think of the trade-off. You've got these kids who can understand the poem, they can finish the work, and they are more engaged in English. The other thing I think is like that class that I talked about in particular, that Year 10 class, I'm sending them out into the world knowing Dulce Decorum Est. And I think that's a really cool thing because these are the kinds of things, the texts that you stumble across in life and you feel a bit stink if everyone else knows that poem and you don't. Like it's about, you don't want to send them out into the world ignorant, do you? So I think the more literature that students have access to, the better. Even if they initially saw a rewritten version, who cares? Like, you're giving them access to this message, to this experience, and you're getting them thinking about that. And I think it's fantastic. As I say, I always give them the original at the end anyway. But honestly, rewrite those poems, absolute gold. Stupid, simple idea, but I think it's one that not many people do. I haven't heard any other teachers doing it, but I'm sure there are plenty. But yeah, give it a shot. You'll enjoy it, and so will your students. See ya.